The snow was coming down like crazy that night. Tom could barely see 2 feet in front of him as he walked along the empty road. His old car had finally given up on him about 3 miles back, steam pouring out from under the hood. He'd been driving for hours trying to get home after visiting his sick grandmother in the next town over. Now here he was, stuck in the middle of nowhere with his phone showing no signal bars. The wind was cutting right through his jacket, and his fingers were getting so cold he could barely feel them anymore. Every step felt harder than the last, and he was starting to worry he might not make it much further. Tom had always been the kind of guy who could handle tough situations. Working as a freelance writer meant he'd been in some pretty weird places before. He'd spent nights in his car during storms, hiked through rough terrain for stories, and dealt with all sorts of challenges. But this was different. This cold was the kind that gets into your bones and doesn't let go. He kept telling himself to just keep walking, that he'd find help soon. Maybe a truck would come by, or maybe he'd spot a house with lights on. But the road stretched ahead of him like a white tunnel, with tall pine trees on both sides swaying in the wind. The snow was piling up fast, already past his ankles. That's when he saw it. A soft, warm glow through the trees, maybe 100 yards off the road. At first, he thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. When you're that cold and tired, your mind starts doing funny things. But as he got closer, squinting through the swirling snow, he could make out the shape of a small cabin. Tom felt a rush of relief wash over him. He pushed through the deep snow, his legs working harder than they had in years. Branches scratched at his face and coat, but he didn't care. All that mattered was getting to that warm light. The cabin looked like something from a postcard. It wasn't very big, but it had this cozy feel to it, with smoke coming from the chimney and golden light spilling out of the windows. There were strange wind chimes hanging from the porch that made soft musical sounds even in the storm. The whole place had this peaceful vibe that made Tom feel calmer just looking at it. He stumbled up the wooden steps and knocked on the door, his knuckles so cold they could barely bend. For a moment nothing happened, and Tom started to panic. What if nobody was home? What if he'd imagined the whole thing? Then the door opened, and Tom found himself looking at the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. She had long, dark hair that seemed to shimmer in the light and the palest skin he'd ever encountered. But it was her eyes that really caught his attention. They were this incredible shade of blue-green, like looking at the ocean on a sunny day. There was something about them that seemed almost hypnotic. "Oh my goodness, you must be freezing," she said, and her voice was like music. She immediately stepped aside and gestured for him to come in. "Please come inside right away. You look like you're about to collapse." Tom didn't need to be asked twice. He stepped into the warmth of the cabin, and it felt like being wrapped in a soft blanket. The change in temperature was so dramatic that his glasses fogged up completely. "I'm so sorry to bother you," Tom said, his teeth still chattering. "My car broke down on the road and I was trying to walk to town when the storm got really bad." "Don't apologize at all," the woman said, closing the door behind him. "I'm Luna, and you're more than welcome here. Let me help you with that coat." As Luna helped him out of his wet jacket, Tom got a better look at the inside of the cabin. It was incredible. The walls were covered with artwork that looked like nothing he'd ever seen before. There were paintings of landscapes that seemed to glow with their own light, and sculptures made from materials that looked like crystal, but felt warm to the touch. The furniture was simple but elegant, all made from what looked like driftwood, but polished to a beautiful shine. A fire crackled in the stone fireplace, casting dancing shadows around the room. But what really caught Tom's attention were the small decorative items scattered around the place. They looked like they were made from some kind of metal that shifted colors as you looked at it from different angles. "This place is amazing," Tom said, still looking around in wonder. "Did you make all this stuff yourself?" Luna smiled, and there was something mysterious about her expression. "Some of it. I like to collect interesting things. But right now, we need to get you warmed up properly. You're still shivering." She led him to a chair near the fireplace and disappeared into what Tom assumed was the kitchen. He could hear her moving around, the sound of a kettle being filled, cabinet doors opening and closing. While he waited, he held his hands out toward the fire and tried to process what had just happened. It all felt almost too good to be true. Just when he thought he might not make it through the night, This beautiful woman had appeared like an angel and welcomed him into her incredible home. Tom had always been a practical guy, maybe even a little cynical from years of journalism, but he couldn't help feeling like something magical was happening. Luna returned with a steaming mug that smelled like nothing Tom had ever encountered before. It wasn't quite tea, wasn't quite coffee, but something entirely different. The aroma was warm and comforting, with hints of flowers and spices he couldn't identify. "Drink this slowly," Luna said, handing him the mug. "It'll help warm you up from the inside." Tom took a sip and felt warmth spread through his entire body. Whatever was in this drink, it was working better than any hot chocolate or coffee he'd ever had. Within minutes, he could feel his fingers and toes again, and the shivering finally stopped. "This is incredible," he said, taking another sip. "What's in it?" "Just some herbs I grow myself," Luna replied, settling into the chair across from him. "Family recipe." As Tom continued to warm up, he found himself studying Luna more closely. There was something about her that he couldn't quite put his finger on. She moved with this graceful, almost floating quality, and her skin seemed to have this subtle glow to it. When she spoke, her voice had this calming effect that made him feel completely relaxed. "So what brings you out in weather like this?" Luna asked, curling up in her chair like a cat. Tom told her about visiting his grandmother and the car breaking down. As he talked, he noticed that Luna listened with this intense focus, like every word he said was the most fascinating thing she'd ever heard. It was flattering, but also a little unusual. Most people's attention wandered during casual conversation, but Luna seemed completely absorbed. "You're very kind to let me stay until the storm passes," Tom said. "I don't know what I would have done if I hadn't seen your lights." "It's no trouble at all," Luna replied. "Actually, I don't get many visitors out here. It's nice to have some company." The wind continued to howl outside, rattling the windows and reminding Tom just how lucky he was to be inside. Luna got up to add another log to the fire, and Tom noticed how the flame seemed to respond to her presence, burning brighter and warmer. "I have a guest room you can use," Luna said. "The storm doesn't look like it's going to let up anytime soon, and you shouldn't try to travel in this weather." Tom felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. "Are you sure? I don't want to impose." "I insist," Luna said, and there was something in her tone that made it clear the decision was final. "Besides, I'd worry about you all night if you tried to leave now." As the evening wore on, Tom found himself feeling more comfortable than he had in months. The warmth, the strange but delicious drink, and Luna's calming presence all combined to make him feel completely at peace. His eyelids were getting heavy, and he realized just how exhausted he was from the whole ordeal. Luna showed him to the guest room, which was just as beautifully decorated as the rest of the cabin. The bed looked incredibly inviting, with soft blankets and pillows that seemed to call to him. "Sleep as long as you need," Luna said from the doorway. "We'll figure out what to do about your car in the morning." As Tom settled into the comfortable bed, he couldn't shake the feeling that he'd stumbled into something extraordinary. Luna seemed almost too perfect, too kind, too beautiful to be real. But the warmth of the bed and the lingering effects of whatever had been in that drink made it hard to think too clearly. Outside, the storm continued to rage, but inside the cabin, everything felt safe and peaceful. Tom drifted off to sleep with a smile on his face, grateful for his incredible luck and looking forward to getting to know his mysterious rescuer better. Tom woke up feeling better than he had in weeks. The bed was incredibly comfortable, and he'd slept deeper than usual. Sunlight was streaming through the windows, but when he looked outside, snow was still falling heavily. The storm hadn't let up at all during the night. He could smell something amazing cooking downstairs. His stomach growled loudly, reminding him that he hadn't eaten since lunch the day before. Tom got dressed quickly and made his way to the kitchen, where he found Luna standing at the stove making what looked like the most perfect breakfast he'd ever seen. "Good morning," Luna said with that same warm smile from the night before. "I hope you slept well. I made some pancakes and eggs for you." The food looked incredible. The pancakes were golden brown and fluffy, and the eggs were cooked exactly how Tom liked them. There was also fresh fruit that looked like it had just been picked, even though it was the middle of winter. "This looks amazing," Tom said, sitting down at the small wooden table. "You really didn't have to go to all this trouble." "It's no trouble at all," Luna replied, but Tom noticed she didn't sit down to eat with him. "I'm not really hungry right now. I ate earlier." Tom started eating, and the food tasted even better than it looked. Everything had this perfect flavor that made his taste buds sing. He couldn't remember the last time he'd had such a good meal. "So what do you do for work?" Tom asked between bites. "Do you work from home?" Luna paused for a moment, like she was thinking carefully about her answer. "I do research," she said finally. "I study different cultures and how people live their lives. It's fascinating work." "That sounds interesting," Tom said. "What kind of cultures?" "Oh, all kinds," Luna replied, but she quickly changed the subject. "What about you? What kind of writing do you do?" Tom told her about his freelance work, how he traveled around writing articles about interesting people and places. Luna listened with that same intense focus from the night before, asking detailed questions about his travels and the stories he'd covered. "You must meet so many different types of people," Luna said, leaning forward with genuine interest. "What's the most interesting story you've ever worked on?" Tom thought about it for a moment. "I once wrote about this small town where everyone claimed they'd seen strange lights in the sky. Most people thought they were crazy, but I spent a week there talking to witnesses. They all described the same thing down to the smallest details." Luna's eyes seemed to light up at this story. "What did you think? Did you believe them?" "I'd try to keep an open mind," Tom said. "There's a lot in this world we don't understand yet." As the day went on, Tom found himself enjoying Luna's company more and more. She was incredibly smart and well-read, able to discuss everything from ancient history to modern science. But there were moments when she'd say something that seemed a bit off. When Tom mentioned a popular TV show, Luna looked completely blank. When he talked about social media, she seemed confused by the concept, yet she knew incredibly detailed information about scientific discoveries that Tom was pretty sure hadn't been widely reported yet. "How do you keep up with all this research?" Tom asked. "Do you have internet out here?" "I have my ways," Luna said with a mysterious smile. "Information finds me when I need it." Later that afternoon, Tom offered to help Luna with some chores around the cabin. He noticed that she moved differently than most people. Her steps were completely silent, even on the creaky wooden floors. When she reached for things on high shelves, she seemed to barely have to stretch at all. The strangest thing happened when they were bringing in firewood from outside. Tom's hands were getting cold and stiff from handling the frozen logs, but Luna's hands looked completely normal, even though she wasn't wearing gloves. When he mentioned it, she just shrugged. "I don't really feel the cold much," she said. "I guess I'm just used to it." But Tom had noticed something else. When Luna handed him pieces of wood, her skin felt cool to the touch, almost like touching a stone that had been sitting in the shade. It wasn't unpleasant, just unusual. That evening, they sat by the fire again, and Tom found himself watching Luna more carefully. She had this habit of staring out the windows at the sky, even though it was dark and snowing. Sometimes she'd get this distant look in her eyes, like she was thinking about something far away. "Do you ever get lonely out here?" Tom asked. "It must be pretty isolated." "Sometimes," Luna admitted. "But I've gotten used to being alone. I've been here for, well, longer than most people stay in one place." "How long is that?" Luna hesitated, again. "Time moves differently when you're by yourself. Days blend together." Tom was starting to feel like there was a lot Luna wasn't telling him. As a journalist, he'd developed pretty good instincts about when people were hiding something, but he couldn't figure out what she might be hiding or why. Around midnight, Tom woke up feeling thirsty. He quietly made his way downstairs to get a glass of water, not wanting to wake Luna. But as he passed the living room window, he saw something that made him stop in his tracks. Luna was standing outside in the snow, wearing only a thin nightgown. The temperature had to be well below freezing, but she didn't seem bothered by it at all. She was looking up at the sky with that same intense focus. Her arms stretched out like she was trying to reach for something. Tom watched, fascinated and a little worried. She stood there for at least 10 minutes, completely motionless, like a statue. The snow was landing on her hair and shoulders, but she didn't brush it off or shiver. Finally, she turned and walked back toward the cabin. Tom quickly went back upstairs, pretending to be asleep when he heard her come inside. But he lay awake for a long time, wondering what he'd just witnessed. The next morning, Tom decided to test something. When Luna brought him breakfast again, he casually mentioned how cold it had been during the night. "I was so cold I couldn't sleep," he said, watching her reaction. "I bet it was freezing outside." "I wouldn't know," Luna replied without missing a beat. "I slept soundly all night." Tom knew she was lying, but he couldn't understand why. What was she doing outside in the middle of a snowstorm, and why didn't the cold affect her the way it affected normal people? As the day continued, Tom started noticing other small things that didn't add up. Luna's reflection in the mirrors around the cabin seemed slightly off, like it was a fraction of a second delayed. When she walked past the plants near the windows, they seemed to perk up and turn toward her, as if she was giving off some kind of energy. Most strange of all, Tom realized he hadn't seen Luna eat anything since he'd arrived. She made elaborate meals for him, but always claimed she'd already eaten or wasn't hungry. When he really thought about it, he'd never actually seen her put food in her mouth. "Luna," Tom said that afternoon, "are you feeling okay? You haven't eaten anything while I've been here." "I'm fine," Luna replied quickly. "I just have a different eating schedule than most people. I prefer to eat when I'm alone." But Tom was starting to wonder if Luna was like most people at all. Everything about her seemed just slightly off from normal human behavior. Her skin temperature, her silence when she moved, her strange knowledge, and her ability to stand outside in freezing weather without any protection. That night, Tom made a decision. He was going to stay awake and see what Luna did when she thought he was sleeping. Something was going on here, and his journalist instincts were telling him it was bigger than just an eccentric woman living alone in the woods. As he lay in bed pretending to sleep, Tom couldn't shake the feeling that he'd stumbled into a story much stranger than anything he'd ever covered before. The question was, what exactly was Luna hiding, and why had she really invited him to stay? The storm continued to rage outside, but Tom was beginning to wonder if the weather was the least mysterious thing about his current situation. Tom barely slept that night. Every sound made him wonder if Luna was doing something strange again. When morning finally came, he felt exhausted but determined to find out what was really going on. Luna seemed different that morning. She was still, kind and welcoming, but there was something in her eyes that hadn't been there before. It was like she was studying him, watching his every move and reaction. "The storm should clear up by tomorrow," Luna said as she handed him his morning coffee. "You'll probably be able to get your car looked at then." Tom nodded, but part of him wasn't sure he wanted to leave anymore. Not until he figured out what Luna was hiding. His curiosity was getting the better of him, and as a writer, he'd learned to trust his instincts when something felt like a story. Around midday, Luna announced she needed to go outside to gather some firewood from the shed. This was Tom's chance. He'd been waiting for a moment when she'd be out of the house long enough for him to do some investigating. "I'll help you," Tom offered, but Luna shook her head. "No need," she said. "The wood is heavy, and I know exactly where everything is. Just relax by the fire. I'll be back in a few minutes." Tom watched from the window as Luna walked toward a small shed at the edge of the property. She moved through the deep snow like it was nothing, her feet barely sinking in. Once she disappeared inside the shed, Tom knew he had to act fast. He started in the living room, looking more carefully at all the strange decorations he'd noticed before. Up close, the artwork was even more unusual than he'd thought. The paintings showed landscapes that definitely weren't from anywhere on Earth. There were two suns in some of the skies, and the plants looked like nothing Tom had ever seen before. The sculptures were made from materials that seemed to change color as he moved around them. When he touched one, it felt warm and almost seemed to pulse, like it was alive somehow. Tom had traveled all over the world for his writing, but he'd never seen anything like this. He moved to the kitchen next, opening cabinets and drawers. Most of them contained normal household items, but in one drawer, he found something that made his heart race. There were photographs, but not the kind you'd expect to find in someone's kitchen drawer. The photos showed people in various everyday situations. People at work, people shopping, people walking their dogs. But what made Tom's blood run cold was that many of the people in the photos looked exactly like him. Not similar to him, but exactly like him. Same face, same hair, same build. Tom's hands shook as he flipped through the photos. There were dozens of them, showing people who could have been his identical twin doing normal, everyday activities. At the bottom of the pile, he found photos that were definitely of him, taken from a distance. Him getting gas at a station, him walking out of a grocery store, him sitting at a coffee shop. Someone had been following him, watching him, photographing him. But who? And for how long? Tom quickly put the photos back and headed upstairs. He knew Luna would be back soon, but he had to see what else he could find. Her bedroom door was closed, but it wasn't locked. Tom hesitated for just a moment before opening it. Luna's bedroom was unlike anything he'd ever seen. The walls were covered with what looked like star charts, but they showed constellations that Tom didn't recognize. There were complex diagrams that looked almost like blueprints, with measurements and notes written in symbols he couldn't read. On the dresser, there was a device that looked like nothing Tom had ever encountered. It was about the size of a tablet, but it seemed to be made from the same strange material as the sculptures downstairs. When Tom touched it, the surface lit up with three-dimensional images that appeared to float in the air above it. The images showed what looked like a detailed map of the local area, but with much more information than any normal map would have. There were markers indicating where people lived, what their daily routines were, and even what appeared to be personal information about each resident. Tom found his own house marked on the map, along with detailed notes about his schedule, his job, and his personal habits. The information was incredibly accurate and detailed. Someone had been studying him for a very long time, but the most shocking discovery was yet to come. In Luna's closet, Tom found clothes that looked normal from a distance, but up close were clearly made from materials that didn't exist on Earth. The fabric felt like silk, but shimmered like metal, and it seemed to adjust its temperature based on the surrounding air. Behind the clothes, Tom found a small journal. The pages were filled with notes written in the same strange symbols he'd seen on the wall charts, but there were also sketches that made his stomach turn. They were detailed drawings of human anatomy, showing internal organs, bone structure, and what appeared to be nervous system diagrams. The final pages of the journal contained sketches that were clearly of him. Not just his face, but detailed drawings of his entire body, showing measurements and annotations that looked like they were for some kind of scientific study. Tom heard the front door open downstairs. Luna was back. He quickly closed the journal and tried to put everything back exactly where he'd found it, but his hands were shaking so badly he could barely manage it. "Tom?" Luna called from downstairs. "Where are you?" "Just using the bathroom," Tom called back, trying to keep his voice steady. "I'll be down in a minute." Tom closed Luna's bedroom door and tried to calm himself down. Everything he'd found pointed to one impossible conclusion. Luna wasn't human. She was something else, something that had been studying humans, and specifically studying him. But why? What did she want? And how long had she been watching him before he'd accidentally found her cabin? Tom made his way downstairs, trying to act normal, but his mind was racing. Luna was standing by the fireplace, and when she looked at him, Tom could swear her eyes looked different. They seemed to be glowing slightly, and there was an intelligence behind them that felt ancient and alien. "You look pale," Luna said, tilting her head to one side. "Are you feeling all right?" "I'm fine," Tom lied. "Just a little tired." But Luna was studying him with that intense focus again, and Tom got the feeling that she knew exactly what he'd been doing upstairs. The way she was looking at him made him feel like a bug under a microscope. "Tom," Luna said slowly, "I think we need to talk." The tone of her voice had changed completely. Gone was the warm, welcoming woman who had rescued him from the storm. In her place was something that sounded calculating and cold. "We need to talk about what you found in my room," Luna continued, and Tom's heart nearly stopped. "And we need to talk about why you're really here." Tom realized that his cover was blown. Luna knew that he'd been snooping around, and from the look in her eyes, she wasn't happy about it. The question now was what she planned to do about it. "I can explain," Tom started, but Luna held up her hand to stop him. "No," she said. "Let me explain. You're not here by accident, Tom. Your car didn't just happen to break down near my cabin, and I'm not just some woman who happened to be in the right place at the right time." Luna walked closer to him, and Tom noticed that her movements were different now. Gone was the graceful, almost floating way she'd moved before. Now she moved with purpose, like a predator approaching its prey. "Fariti, question is," Luna said, stopping just a few feet away from him, "what are we going to do about this situation?" Tom realized that he was no longer a guest in Luna's cabin. He was something else entirely, and he had a feeling that whatever Luna really was, his life was about to change in ways he couldn't even imagine. The storm outside seemed to grow stronger, as if it was responding to the tension in the room. Tom looked toward the windows, but all he could see was swirling snow and darkness. He was trapped here with Luna, and now he knew that she wasn't human. The only question was whether he would survive long enough to find out what she really wanted from him. Tom's heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. Luna stood there watching him, and now that he knew the truth, he could see things about her that he'd missed before. Her skin had this subtle glow to it, and when she blinked, it seemed to take just a fraction of a second longer than normal. "Sit down, Tom," Luna said, her voice calm but firm. "We have a lot to discuss." Tom didn't move. Every instinct in his body was telling him to run, but where could he go? The storm was still raging outside, and he was miles from anywhere. Even if he could make it to the door, he'd probably freeze to death before he found help. "I'm not going to hurt you," Luna said, seeming to read his thoughts. "At least not if you listen to what I have to say." Tom slowly sat down in the chair by the fireplace, his eyes never leaving Luna's face. She moved to the window and looked out at the swirling snow. "You want to know what I am?" Luna said. It wasn't a question. "And you want to know what I want with you?" "Yeah," Tom managed to say. "I think I deserve some answers." Luna turned back to face him, and for the first time since he'd met her, she looked almost sad. "My real name isn't Luna. That's just something I chose because it sounded human. I'm from a place that's very far away from here, so far that your people don't even have names for the stars you'd see if you looked in the right direction." Tom felt his mouth go dry. "You're saying you're an alien?" "That's the word your people use, yes," Luna replied. "Though from my perspective, you're the alien. I've been studying your species for quite some time now." "How long?" Tom asked, though he wasn't sure he really wanted to know the answer. "I've been on this planet for about 3 of your years," Luna said. "I was part of what you might call a research team. We were sent here to learn about humans, to understand how your society works, how you think, how you behave." Tom's mind was reeling. "Research team? You mean there are others like you?" "There were," Luna said, and there was definitely sadness in her voice now. "But something went wrong with our mission. Our ship was damaged during landing, and we were scattered across different regions of your planet. I don't know what happened to the others." Luna walked over to the strange device Tom had seen in her room and brought it back to the living room. When she touched it, the 3-dimensional map appeared again, floating in the air between them. "This is how I've been monitoring the local area," Luna explained. "It tracks the movement and behavior patterns of every human within a 50-mile radius. I've been collecting data on all of you for years." Tom stared at the map, seeing his own house and his daily routines displayed in detail. "You've been spying on us." "I've been studying you," Luna corrected. "There's a difference. I needed to understand how humans live, how they interact with each other, what makes them happy or sad or angry." "Why?" Tom asked. "What's the point of all this research?" Luna was quiet for a long moment. and Tom could see she was struggling with something. My people. They're looking for a new home. Our planet is dying and we need somewhere else to live. But we don't want to just take over a world. We want to find a place where we can coexist peacefully. So you're planning to invade Earth? Not invade, Luna said quickly. Integrate. But first, we needed to know if that was even possible. We needed to understand if humans and my people could live together without conflict. Tom felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. And what did you find out? Luna looked directly at him, and her eyes seemed to glow brighter. That's where it gets complicated. The original plan was for me to complete my research and send a report back to my people. Based on that report, they would decide whether to attempt contact or look for another world. But something changed, Tom said, sensing there was more to the story. Yes, Luna admitted. Something I didn't expect happened. The longer I stayed here, the more time I spent observing humans, the more I began to feel things I'd never felt before. What kind of things? Luna sat down across from him, and for the first time she looked vulnerable. My people don't experience emotions the way humans do. We're logical, practical, focused on survival and efficiency. But living among humans, watching how you care for each other, how you create art and music just because it makes you happy, it started to change me. Tom was beginning to understand. You started to become more human. In a way, yes, Luna said. And that became a problem when you arrived at my door 3 days ago. What do you mean? Luna stood up and began pacing around the room. You weren't supposed to be here, Tom. Your car breaking down near my cabin, the storm trapping you here. None of that was part of my plan. But when I saw you standing at my door, freezing and desperate, something inside me responded in a way I'd never experienced before. You felt sorry for me? More than that, Luna said. I felt connected to you somehow. I wanted to help you, to protect you, to make you feel safe. These were completely foreign emotions for me. Tom remembered how kind and caring Luna had been from the moment he'd arrived. So you really were just trying to help me? At first, yes, Luna said. But then I realized who you were. I'd been studying you for months, Tom. I knew your routines, your habits, your personality. In my research, you'd become one of the most interesting subjects. Why me? Luna smiled, and it was the first genuine smile Tom had seen from her since the truth had come out. Because you're different from most humans. You're curious about the world, open to new ideas, willing to accept that there might be things beyond your understanding. Most humans would have run screaming if they'd discovered what you found in my room. I thought about it, Tom admitted. But you didn't, Luna pointed out. You stayed, you wanted answers. That's exactly the kind of thinking that made you interesting to study. Tom was quiet for a moment, processing everything Luna had told him. So what happens now? You said something went wrong with your mission. Luna's expression became serious, again. The problem is that I was supposed to send my report weeks ago. My people are expecting to hear from me, and if I don't contact them soon, they'll assume something has happened to me. And then what? They'll send a recovery team, Luna said. And if they can't find me, they'll assume this world is too dangerous for integration. They'll look for another planet and humans will never know how close they came to making contact with another intelligent species. Tom felt a strange sense of disappointment. The idea that humanity might miss out on meeting an alien species because of a miscommunication seemed tragic. But that's not the worst part, Luna continued. If they do find me and they discover that I've been compromised by human emotions, they'll consider me a failed experiment. They might decide that humans are too unpredictable, too dangerous, to coexist with. What would that mean? Luna looked directly at him and Tom could see fear in her alien eyes. It might mean they'd decide to colonize Earth anyway, but without trying to coexist peacefully. They'd see humans as a threat to be eliminated rather than a species to befriend. Tom felt the weight of what Luna was telling him. The decisions she made in the next few days could determine the future of the entire human race. So what are you going to do? Tom asked. Luna was quiet for a long moment, staring into the fire. I don't know, she said finally. For the first time in my life, I have to make a choice between logic and emotion, between duty to my people and loyalty to yours. And what does your heart tell you to do? Luna looked at him with surprise. My heart? Yeah, Tom said. You said you've been learning to feel human emotions. What do those emotions tell you? Luna sat back down, and Tom could see she was struggling with something she'd never had to deal with before. They tell me to protect you, she said quietly. To protect all humans, even if it means betraying my own people. The fire crackled in, the silence that followed, and Tom realized that both of their lives had just changed forever. The woman who had saved him from the storm was now asking him to help her save the world. Tom sat in silence for several minutes, trying to process everything Luna had told him. The woman who had saved his life was an alien, and now the fate of humanity might depend on what they decided to do next. How long do we have? Tom finally asked. Luna checked her strange device. My people expect a report within the next 2 days. If I don't send something by then, they'll assume the worst. And if you tell them the truth that you've developed feelings for humans? They'll think I've been compromised, Luna said. They might decide that humans are too dangerous to approach peacefully, or they might come to rescue me and decide to study your people more, directly. Tom didn't like the sound of that. What if we worked together? What if we could find a way to make this work for everyone? Luna looked at him with curiosity. What do you mean? Tom's mind was racing. As a journalist, he'd always been good at finding creative solutions to complex problems. You said your people want to know if humans and your species can coexist peacefully. What if we could prove that they can? How? By showing them that it's already happening, Tom said, getting excited about his idea. You and I are getting along fine. We're different species, but we're communicating. We're working together. We care about each other's well-being. Luna shook her head. It's not that simple. One example isn't enough to convince them. Then we make it more than one example, Tom said. You said there were other members of your team scattered around the planet. What if we could find them? What if we could show your people that humans and your species have been coexisting peacefully in multiple locations? Luna considered this for a moment. Even if we could find the others, there's no guarantee they've had the same experience I have. They might not have developed emotional connections with humans. But some of them might have, Tom pointed out. And even if they haven't, we could work with them. I could help them understand humans better, and they could help humans understand your people. Luna was quiet for a long time, staring at the fire. Tom could see she was wrestling with the decision. There's something else, Luna said finally. If I don't send the expected report, if I try to change the plan, I can never go home. My people will consider me a traitor. Tom felt a pang of sympathy for her. Is that what you want? To go home? I thought it was, Luna said. But now, I'm not sure. These past few days with you have shown me things about myself I never knew existed. I've felt happiness, curiosity, even love in a way I never thought possible. Love? Tom asked, surprised by the admission. Luna looked at him with those strange, beautiful eyes. Not romantic love necessarily, but a deep caring for another being's well-being. A desire to protect and nurture. Is that what humans call love? Tom smiled. That's definitely part of it. Luna stood up and walked to her communication device. If we're going to do this, we need to be smart about it. I can't lie to my people directly, but I can be selective about what information I share. What do you mean? I can tell them that I've made contact with a human who could serve as a liaison between our species, Luna said. I can say that this human has shown remarkable adaptability and understanding, and that I believe peaceful coexistence is possible. Would that be enough to convince them? It might be enough to get them to delay any final decisions, Luna said. Give us time to find the others and build a stronger case. Tom felt a surge of hope. So we're really going to try this? Luna looked at him with determination. We're going to try. But Tom, you need to understand what you're getting into. If we do this, Your life will never be the same. You'll be one of the first humans to make official contact with an alien species. The responsibility will be enormous. Tom thought about it for a moment. As a writer, he'd always been looking for the story of a lifetime. This was bigger than anything he could have imagined. "I'm in," he said. "But I have one condition." "What's that?" "We do this together. I'm not going to be your people's pet human, and you're not going to be humanity's pet alien. We're partners in this." Luna smiled, and Tom realized it was the first completely genuine smile he'd seen from her. "Partners," she agreed. Over the next few hours, they worked together to craft Luna's report. It was a delicate balance of truth and diplomacy. Luna explained that she had made contact with a human who showed exceptional potential for interspecies cooperation. She described Tom's intelligence, curiosity, and open-mindedness, without mentioning how their relationship had developed. "What about your feelings?" Tom asked as Luna prepared to send the message. "Are you going to tell them about the emotional changes you've experienced?" Luna hesitated. "Not yet. I'll present it as a scientific observation about human influence on our species, something that requires further study." "That's actually pretty clever," Tom said. "It makes it sound like a research opportunity rather than a problem." Luna activated her device and sent the message. Now all they could do was wait for a response. The storm outside was finally beginning to clear. Tom could see patches of blue sky through the clouds for the first time in days. "So what happens now?" Tom asked. "Now we wait," Luna said. "And we prepare. If my people agree to extend the mission, we'll need to be ready to prove that humans and my species can work together." "And if they don't agree?" Luna was quiet for a moment. "Then we'll have to decide what we're willing to sacrifice to protect both our peoples." Tom looked out at the clearing sky and felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. 3 days ago, his biggest worry had been a broken-down car in a snowstorm. Now he was part of a plan that could change the course of human history. "Luna," Tom said, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you regret it? Getting involved with humans, developing feelings, putting yourself in this position?" Luna considered the question carefully. "A few days ago, I would have said yes. My people value logic and efficiency above all else. What I've done would seem foolish to them, but now I think that maybe feeling foolish is better than feeling nothing at all," Luna said. "You humans have something we don't. You care about things that don't benefit you directly. You create beauty just because it makes you happy. You risk your lives to help strangers." "You saved my life," Tom pointed out. "That sounds pretty human." "To me." "Maybe that's the point," Luna said. "Maybe the line between human and alien isn't as clear as we thought." Luna's device chimed softly. She looked at it and smiled. "They've agreed to extend the mission," she said. "We have 6 months to prove that peaceful coexistence is possible." Tom felt a rush of relief and excitement. 6 months to save the world, no pressure. Luna laughed, and the sound was purely human. No pressure at all. As the sun broke through the clouds outside, Tom realized that his life had just taken a turn he never could have imagined. He was no longer just a freelance writer looking for interesting stories. He was humanity's first ambassador to an alien species. But looking at Luna, seeing the hope and determination in her eyes, Tom felt ready for the challenge. Together, they were going to prove that 2 very different species could not only coexist, but could learn from each other and become something better than either could be alone. The storm had passed, but their real journey was just beginning. And Tom couldn't wait to see where it would take them. Outside, the world looked fresh and new under the clearing sky. It was the perfect metaphor for what lay ahead, a chance to start over, to build something beautiful from the aftermath of chaos. Tom and Luna stood at the window together, watching the sun shine on the snow-covered landscape. 2 beings from different worlds, united by curiosity, compassion, and hope for the future. "Ready to change the world?" Luna asked. Tom smiled. "Let's do it."